You're listening to Al Pastor, the show that helps you love God, love your neighbor, and eat more tacos. I'm your host, Pastor Brian. Welcome to the show. Hey, friends, I want to welcome you to today's podcast. I'm going to make this really short and sweet, but first I want to say thank you for your patience. It's been a couple of weeks. I feel really bad and feel really behind because we haven't walked through Acts chapter 16 or 17, and we're already in Acts chapter 18. And so I wanted to tell you a little bit about what's going on, ask for your forgiveness, and encourage you to keep tuning in. We're gonna pick it up. I've decided right on Acts chapter 18. My desire is to go back when I get freed up just a little bit more and go ahead and walk through Acts 16 and 17. It really bugs me. I have the type of personality that I want everything to look good and be in order, and now I'm just out of order, out of whack. But you know what? That's okay. Before I give you a little bit of an update, I've got to talk about some tacos for a minute, so I hope that's okay. This past weekend was Mother's Day, and we had got a call. I kind of laugh at it because there's a gentleman in our church. His name is Mario, and apparently he had cooked some carnitas, and he had given them to another member of the congregation, Doggo, and I got a text from Doggo, and it was about 10 p.m., and it just said, "Pastor, are you up?" And my heart dropped. I was in bed, by the way, and I'm like, oh, no. Usually, okay, for a pastor, I've just got to tell you, that's not a good sign. It's 10 p.m., and you get a text that says, "Pastor, are you up?" And I'm thinking, oh, what happened? So I called him immediately, and he said, "Hey, I've got some carnitas for you. Are you home?" I was so relieved, but then I'm like, "Doggo, I'm in bed." Like we were in bed. We were like almost at that point, and so I was kind of laughing about that. So we didn't get the carnitas until Sunday, and of course we had Mother's Day service, and so those got refrigerated. And again, thank Mario. Those are some good carnitas. I've just got to tell you, I'm going to brag on them a little bit more here. So Marcia, she warmed them up Sunday afternoon because we had went to lunch for Mother's Day and went by Doggo's house to pick them up. And then that evening we were hungry, and so Marcia says, "Hey, I'm gonna warm up these carnitas." Now I've got to tell you, these were some of the juiciest, tastiest carnitas that I've ever had. I can tell you this with absolute confidence. I've never had better carnitas here in Kern County in Arvin, at least in the United States. I'll put it that way. These are up there, and I know that Mario is from Guanajuato, so I'm assuming that he did these what we call GTO style, Guanajuato style. And when Noah, Memo, and Doggo and I had went to Mexico, we had went to this little church in Valle de Santiago. And I mean, I'm talking about dirt roads. You had to get there, chickens, horses. I mean, it's like you had to get there to get to this church. And the church knew that we were coming, and somebody that I guess an elder in the church, their son who lives in the United States, had found out it's actually kind of rare for this church to get visiting pastors or preachers. And so they found out, and they sent some money, and they said, "Hey, throw a party, throw a carnitas." So this church made carnitas, and Mario's carnitas reminded me of what we had in Valle de Santiago. So Mario, kudos to you. Thank you. Thank you for your support of the Al Pastor podcast. We run off of tacos, really, and carnitas is, talk about making a good taco. That's what I'm talking about. So let me update you guys on a little bit of what's been happening the last couple of weeks. As most of you know, Marcia had surgery, and we're coming up on just around the 2-week mark, I believe. It's like my brain's not functioning when I'm trying to process time here. And so she had a pretty major surgery for some gastrointestinal issues, and her recovery was, quite frankly, a little bit rough and a little bit slow. And so Noah and I got to play nurse, and then Noah fell sick. And when I say sick, he wasn't acting like himself. It was almost like a hard flu. And so I'm thinking, oh, great. I've got Marcia laid up and now Noah's sick. But you know what? The Lord saw us through. So Marcia started feeling much better. Praise the Lord. And it was actually this last week that our network conference had been scheduled. It was in Visalia. Normally it's down like in Anaheim or something. And this is for all the Assembly of God churches of Southern California. There's about 500 churches or so. And this is a time when pastors and missionaries and ministries get together just for a time of equipping and encouragement and celebration. And so we had no plans of attending because of the recovery process of Marcia. And even the last couple of years, we haven't been able to go because of school schedule, work schedule with Marcia. And I'm just not a big fan of traveling alone, just to be honest with you. If I go somewhere, I want to go with my family. So it's been a few years since we've been able to attend. And Marcia's off work because of the surgery, and Noah was available. He's homeschooled. So Marcia said, "You think we can make it down there?" And I'm like, "Yeah, let's go." So we were able to go down and just have several days down there, and what a blessing! What a blessing! I got one of the highlights of my trip was seeing one of my mentors. His name is Pastor Hobson. He pastored faithfully for almost, I got to double check this number, but I believe it right at about 30 years in Ridgecrest. And this was my Bible college instructor, and he appointed me to the church in Lone Pine. They, at that time, Ridgecrest Calvary Assembly, I don't know what they're called now. They've changed names probably and rebranded and all that, cool hip church stuff. But at the time, before there were campuses, Ridgecrest carried the Lone Pine Church. And when I say carried, I mean literally carried them financially and structurally. And Pastor Hobson was always a firm believer in that church. And I got to tell you, they're still going and thriving even to this day. But to make a long story short, he appointed me to the ministry of that church in Lone Pine. Now, I had already been on staff at Arvin Assembly of God. I was the assistant or associate pastor here to Pastor Amos at that time, and God saw it fit to place me in Lone Pine for 2 years. So Pastor Hobson had a huge hand in that, and over the course of 2 years, to be honest with you, I didn't know a thing that I was doing. I didn't even know how to do a board meeting. I didn't know how to do anything. And he was there for me every step of the way and just a constant source of encouragement. So we hadn't talked to him for no other reason than just it was like went under the radar. Life gets busy, and I was talking to a young man that was part of our ministry in Lone Pine. His name is Draper. He actually lived with us and was a youth leader, and we helped raise him up just for a short season. And he had called me and he said, "Hey, are you on your way?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Guess what? Pastor Hobson's here." And I said, "No way." So we made a beeline and I was looking all over the building. I said, "Where is Pastor Hobson?" Well, I was there too early. He hadn't showed up yet. And so I'm at the end of the church. This is a very large church. It's Visalia First Assembly. And I'm on the complete opposite end because I ended up talking with a friend that used to pastor in Tehachapi, Kevin. And I told Kevin, I said, "Have you seen Pastor Hobson?" He goes, "I saw him, but that was earlier." And then the door started rattling, and we looked over, and it was Pastor Hobson trying to get in the door, but that particular wing was locked. So I ran over there and opened the door and was able to give him a big hug. And wow, what joy filled my heart to be able to see him and his wife, Helen, and his daughter, Melody. And in fact, we got to go to Applebee's after the mission service. So they have a missions, every night's a different theme night. And this particular evening, it was the mission service. So we went to Applebee's and just talked and had a good time. And so I told Pastor Hobson, I said, "Listen, I'd like to drive to Ridgecrest. I'd like to take my podcasting gear. Would you do a podcast with me? And can I just interview you and ask you about your life and your ministry?" And he said, yes, I would love that. So we'll be on the lookout for that soon. I'll keep you updated, but that was the highlight of my trip. We got to see Pastor Hobson, another lot of near and dear friends to our hearts and ministries, several different missionaries, and we were challenged and inspired. I've got so much that I could share with you about that. I will give you this. I'm going to tell you one takeaway that Pastor Hobson gave me, and I may bring this up to him. I don't think he listens to podcasts or anything, but we started talking about ministry, and the conversation came up of like, what do you miss the most about ministry? Because he's been retired now for, I think, almost as long as I've been pastoring. So that's almost 15 years. And he said he missed doing funerals. He said, I never liked doing weddings. He says, but funerals, you kind of have a captive audience. And I said, well, explain that more to me. And here's what he told me. He said what he used to do when someone would pass away, and then we're talking about members in his church. He said, I would ask for their Bible. And he said, I would spend time in their Bible and I would go over their notes, their highlights. He said, sometimes I would see sermon notes tucked away. And he said, I would preach a funeral from their Bible. And as he said that, it was like every hair on the back of my neck stood up. I'm not, it's just like, wow, really? And that is such a beautiful legacy. And he said, then we would gift that Bible to their children. But when he said that, it just stunned me. And when we talk about legacy, when we talk about leaving a heritage, listen, you might not have an inheritance to leave your children. You might not have a bunch of money, but you know what? We can be men and women of the word and of prayer. And so I want to encourage you, maybe you can leave something. I'd like to preach your funeral from your Bible is what I'm trying to say. And so that was incredible. And so several other takeaways that we got from that. But again, thank you so much for your patience. We are going to pick this up in Acts chapter 18, starting tomorrow, God willing. Noah and I are going to walk through the first 11 verses. Want to give you another update. I'm going to do a separate podcast on this, but God's timing is everything. Arvin Assembly, we are starting the School of the Bible. It's official, Arvin Assembly School of the Bible. And we're going to be having our first class. It's going to be a summer session. It'll last 6 weeks, starting on June 1st, which is a Sunday. We'll be going from 4 to 8 p.m. Again, that's 6 weeks for the summer course. In the fall, we'll move to 12 weeks. But our first class is really going to be foundational and introductory. It's going to be hermeneutics. And I know before you clutch your pearls, Ethel, that's the saying that, hermeneutics means how to interpret the Bible. And so I'm going to be doing a separate podcast on just that topic and an invitation to you to join us for that class. If you're part of Arvin Assembly, you've heard already the last couple of Sundays, just a little bit about that. And for those of you that are not part of Arvin Assembly, I want you to know that you are welcome if you're part of a church. Okay, I do want to say this. If you're faithfully part of a church, all we require is that you have your pastor's blessing. I want to make sure that your pastor knows we're not doing the School of Bible trying to steal sheep or trying to promote Arvin Assembly of God in that way. And so all we require is that your pastor knows and that your pastor has given you their blessing. And if need be, I'd talk with them and reassure them as well. But I'm excited for that. And so over the last couple of weeks, even as we've been walking and caring with Marcia in her recovery, and even in the downtime between the conference, I've been having my laptop open, just really allowing the Lord to map things out and say, what could this look like? What is the potential for the School of the Bible? So I am so excited. God is so, so good. And so again, thank you so much for your patience. Be on the lookout for those next several episodes. I've already given you teasers for those, a podcast with Pastor Hobson on location in Ridgecrest. we're going to be doing a podcast about the School of the Bible. And then, of course, the priority is going to be walking through some of the opening verses of Acts chapter 18. So I encourage you, as we're walking in the Word, listen to it in the morning, listen to it in the evening. And I'm so looking forward to Bible study on Wednesday evening. So may the Lord bless you. Thank you for listening to Al Pastor with Brian Overturf. If you found value in this, please subscribe and get updates. Most places podcasts are available. We're right here on Anchor FM through Spotify, also on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon, and iHeartRadio. I hope you'll tune in for the next episode. Until then, we'll see you later.